Hello and welcome to another episode of Life in Spain News, where I attempt to bring you a varied selection of news stories from all over Spain. And today will be no different, as I'm touching on various subjects from all over the place. But to start with, we'll start in my own little town of sunny Fungarola here on the Costa del Sol, where this amazing footage was shown, or turned up at the weekend, of a huge jellyfish being washed up on the beach here, right in front of the Fungarola Castle, if any of you know this part of the world. Here always a major news story, but in reality they don't really affect things here that much. There's only 3 different types of jellyfish that I've been reading about online. The purple stinger, which is the most vicious of these, which only gives you a mild sting anyhow, hence the name. The barrel jellyfish and the moon jellyfish. Now, all of these will give you a sting, but there's nothing which will send you to a hospital or anything like that. And most times it's just treated with salt water. Right, what's interesting when I was reading about the jellyfish is that it does seem to be quite seasonal, and it all depends on the wind. So if there are eastern winds coming onto the Costa del Sol, we tend to have a lot of jellyfish. But if the wind is coming from the Cadiz area and a western wind, they tend to be pushed elsewhere. Now, talking about wind affecting beaches and things like that, I won't recap the hurricane story I did last week from the beach of Granada, but we've had these strange creatures turn up in the Costa Blanca. These little things are called blue dragons, and they are beautiful looking sea slugs. Now, before you all start panicking, they are actually only 2 centimeters long in average, so they're very, very small. But these creatures caused a 10-kilometer stretch of coast in the Costa Blanca to be shut for a day and red flags to be raised. Sometimes these sea slugs can have the same kind of sting as a Portuguese man of war, so probably a bit more potent than your average jellyfish, hence the beach closures. Now, as I said before, with the wind and the jellyfish, these creatures aren't really known here. They're actually found quite often in the Caribbean, but because of an unusual wind at this time of year, they've suddenly turned up on this Costa Blanca beach, which is now shut. Since the day of shuttage, there's been no more problems with these things, and life has gone back to normal. Okay, on to other news and other news stories which I've come across. We've just had the Malaga Feria here, or the Malaga Fair, which is always a huge event here on the Costa del Sol, and maybe debatably the biggest one in Andalusia, probably slightly smaller than the one in Seville. But for the people who live here, the Spanish people especially, it's a huge thing, with the Feria spreading between the town centre and out into the Feria ground, which is a designated area where people set up their casetas, which are these little purpose-built buildings, which big families take control of, and have parties in. Apart from that, there's a huge fun fair, and it goes on to the early hours of the morning. Now, what's always struck me about the fairs here, because we do have fairs throughout the year, especially from about end of March, maybe until the end of October, is there are quite a few of them. In my town itself, in Fungarola, not only do we have the feria of the town itself, we have various neighbourhoods which have their own fairs, which maybe only last 2 or 3 days compared to the 7 or 8 days that Malaga Feria lasts, but still, there's a lot of them. Now, this year, something turned up which actually made me feel quite happy, because one of my big complaints here in Spain, as I touched upon in a very early video, which I did with Dan, is the drink driving here. And for once, the Malaga Feria, they actually tried to address this. Now, if you can see from this footage here, there's actually installed a alcohol machine that detects how much alcohol you have in your system to see if you can drive or not. Now, how this machine was being used is debatable, because I remember in the 90s, they tried to set some of these up in bars in London, and then people were just basically trying to get a high score on them. So you have to applaud the local authorities for addressing this problem with drink driving, especially around the Feria. But once again, let's see if that worked out or not. Now, talking of Seville, there was a crazy incident in Seville this week, which once again I will put the footage up on the screen, of a local bar where a gentleman decided to set light to the bar top. And this squabble was all over the fact that the bar had no sachets of mayonnaise. Once again, I tell this story with a pinch of salt, but as you can see from the footage, it's quite dramatic. And from various accounts of it, it all seems to be over a lack of sachets of mayonnaise. Basically, this gentleman was asked if they had any mayonnaise, and they said, sorry, we have no mayonnaise. So he decided to set light to the bar top. Luckily, nobody was hurt. The incident was quickly sorted out, and the business went back to normal. which sadly can't be said for several businesses in Torremolinos this weekend, where seven locales were burnt out in various levels of damage. Now, this is a case of arson, and it appears that one of these bars had a dispute with another local person. Now, this would be quite easily tagged as a gangland incident, which it definitely isn't, because it's been reported it's just a kind of like domestic dispute between families or between something. But what's happened is, during the night, someone has set light to this bar. You can see from the footage here is amongst other locales or other units, and what it's done is spread across the seven, which has made quite dramatic pitch. So this feud has not only just damaged the one business, it's actually affected the other people as well, including the supermarket and other bars. Let's hope they clear that area up pretty soon, and this kind of thing can be a thing of the past. I've been looking at various things online recently, and of course the debate about immigration is always an interesting one throughout the world, and at the moment, be it in the US, the UK, all across Europe, immigration is a hot topic. Now, for anybody who knows about Spain, we do have immigration here, and whereas a lot of countries are very anti-immigration at the moment, the Spanish government are quite pro it. Now, when I was looking into this, I did find out it's 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people in Spain is foreign born or as a foreign national. Now, that all depends on how you categorize them, because a lot of people have Spanish passports now and obviously still hold passports from where they come from, with South Americans being a large case of those people, or a large number of those people. Now, if you look at the map here, I'm going to put up on the screen, it shows a map of the different types of nationalities across Spain and the largest foreign groups in that particular area. Now, it's no surprise to anybody who live here that Morocco would lead that way, and Moroccans especially, because there are estimates of up to 1 million Moroccans living here. But what you'll see here is in areas which once again won't surprise you, in the areas of Alicante and the Costa del Sol, is that the UK is the leading foreign resident. Now, this is an interesting one, because back in 2012, that was British population here in Spain was over 400,000, but obviously between then and now something happened quite dramatic in Brexit, and those numbers are dropping, so much so that in 23 it was estimated that less than 300,000 Brits live here anymore. Also, which is quite interesting on this map, is the amount of Romanians that live here. Now, people won't realise this, but the Romanian language is very similar to the Spanish language, because its roots come from Latin, a Romance language, very similar to French and Italian. So people find it quite easy to settle here. And there is a large Romanian community here across Spain. What is quite surprising here is in the top left-hand corner in Galicia, which has a coastline very similar to Ireland, is Venezuelans are the #1 foreigner group, which is quite extraordinary, because Venezuela is quite a tropical country in the north part of South America, and for them to live there in a climate which is not unsimilar to, as I said before, Ireland or the parts of Cornwall or someone like that, it is a surprise. What I would imagine though is there's lots of work up there through the fish trade, because Vigo, which is on the top left-hand corner there, is the busiest fish port in the whole of Europe. And finally, I thought I'd give you an update on the wild boar situation, which amused so many people in my last video. And that is that once again, they are traveling onto the beach. As you can see from the footage I put here on screen, that is a wild boar there on the beach on the high-end Marbella, which is using a rock to scratch his back. Then a little further along the coast, towards where I am, here's another group of pigs having a lovely time chasing a beach boar across the sand. So let's see what happens when the weather changes. Where do they go? Are they going to go back to the shopping centre, or maybe take advantage of the various happy hours across many bars on the Costa del Sol? Okay, that's all I've got time for today. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, leave a comment below, and I will catch you next time. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.